Lila, my friend, wanted to take me shopping, and as I only realized too late, had already planned to drag me with her to show me her new favorite pastime. She's been into that New Age stuff for as long as I can remember, but these past few years, especially since the pandemic, she's turned her hobby into what I would call an obsession. What started with simple astrology when we were still teens has now become a journey into the really weird stuff, like past life regressions and astral healing. I used to join her from time to time and got my fortunes told through everything from tea leaves to tarot cards, but those past few months had been entirely too weird for me. At least, until 2 weeks ago, when she showed me what weird really means. We visited a mall, just the two of us at first, and for a few hours I thought everything had returned to normal. Lila didn't speak about her fascination at all. She didn't talk about astral journeys or seances or any of that stuff. Just like before. Only, when I was ready to head home, she told me she had found a new outlet shop with things I just had to see. Like the idiot I apparently am, I told her to lead the way. Maybe I should have stopped once we left the mall. I definitely should have put an end to it as she dragged me through what probably is a drug den. Or maybe everything really is predetermined, and I had no choice after all. Whatever the case, we ended up in one of the creepiest basements I have ever seen. After the drug den, she led me down some stairs. The first set was normal, built by some construction crew, but the second set of stairs was dug by someone using nothing more than a pickaxe. It was immediately obvious that whoever had dug those hadn't followed any kind of plan or had any kind of building permission. I thought we were descending into some kind of drug tunnel, or worse, some kind of dungeon. But Lila seemed at ease, so I just held my tongue and followed her. Again, I might actually be an idiot for that one. After we slowly descended those rough-cut stairs, we reached what I can only describe as a giant hatch, not a door. There was no lock, no visible hinges or the like, but chains. Someone had simply put a rough, lockable barrier into this strange corridor and had called it a day. But Lila smiled and told me to follow. She promised me I would enjoy what was about to happen. Dumb, right? By that point, I had completely forgotten the reason why I had followed her in the first place. Maybe, if I had asked her about the outlet store, she would have stopped. Nah, that's just stupid. Lila probably would have simply shrugged her shoulders and continued on as if I hadn't asked a question. It's kinda the person she is. Loyal to a fault, but stubborn to the point of obstinacy. At least, that's what I choose to believe. I don't think it was meant to hurt me or put me in danger, but help me. Not that I had had a problem she should have helped me with, but you probably know someone like that as well, right? A person that sees all the small imperfections in the lives of the people around them, but willfully ignores their own. She unhooked 2 of the chains and pushed the barrier out of the way while telling me how cool she thought that it looked. I, meanwhile, only had eyes for the naked cables running along the ceiling and the rough stone of this strange pathway. It wouldn't have surprised me at all to see cracks forming and big rocks shifting and falling down on us. That tunnel looked like a single safety hazard. Still, I followed her, not really daring to say anything against what we were doing in the hope of keeping our friendship alive. I fucking hate myself sometimes, you know? We walked and walked and walked, probably for only a few minutes, but I could have sworn we must have spent a considerable chunk of the day down there. Until Lila stopped, took a deep breath, and then pointed along the path. I finally stopped watching the rough stone above long enough to see it as well. A door. This time, a real one, surrounded by what looked like concrete. It was smooth, and somehow seemed completely out of place around here. Like we had just stumbled onto a real basement someone had dug a tunnel into from the outside. Which, by the way, I'm pretty sure was the correct idea. The door we had reached had, at least at one point, been a normal one. One of those you could buy at a home improvement center. Only the owner of this basement, or let's say the occupant of it, had put their own twist on its decoration. I could see small animal bones stuck to it. Deep grooves that had been cut into the wood, paint that was flaking and almost looked like blood. At least, that seemed to be its purpose. The shade was off, and it was sticking far too well to the wood to be real blood, but apparently it had a desired effect on those willing to believe. Meaning Lila. I could almost feel the reverence she felt as we approached the door. She looked so excited, so completely devout. I'm pretty sure it's comparable to a nun getting called on by some higher-up of the church. That was definitely the point of no return. If I had wanted to stop it, I would have needed to speak up before Lila saw the door. But I didn't, and I'm kinda ashamed to admit that I felt curious back then as well. Not about the whole thing itself, but about how Lila would continue to behave. She grabbed me by the shoulder and dragged me closer, quickening her steps while I still tried to keep a level head. As we reached the door, I could see the sweat on my friend's brow, heard the quick, shallow breaths coming out of her, and even felt her trembling through the hand still gripping my shoulder. She stopped me, right in front of the door, raised her hand and knocked 4 times. The sound of her knuckles hitting the wood echoed around us and back from the rough stone of the tunnel. I have to admit, the effect really felt ominous. Probably exactly how the owner or occupant of that place had wanted it. 4 seconds passed before Lila knocked again. I could see a strained smile on her lips as she waited another 4 seconds, then elation in her eyes when a deep, booming voice told us to come in. The door creaked, of course, as Lila opened it and shuffled inside with me still in tow. That's when I first saw the interior of the place. Someone had hung ropes and rough cloth along the stained walls, interspersed with pictures, symbols, and stuff that looked to me like cheap souvenirs bought in the trashiest of tourist places. But Lila didn't act like it bothered her. She had this strange expression on her face. One of bewilderment and reverence whenever her eyes met one of the plastic-looking bones and bowls hung on the wall. And in the midst of this chaotic cacophony of schlock sat a man at a desk. A big one. He was smiling at us, showing 2 gold teeth while delicate chains hung around his neck and arms. The desk itself was almost clean, besides a few small trinkets and a stack of paper in one corner. Lila greeted him in this strange, almost sing-song tone, and the man smiled even more brightly as he repeated it back to her. I felt completely out of place, but before I could say anything, my friend pulled and pushed me in front of her and introduced me, as if I couldn't do so myself. The man smiled and jotted down my name, which I still find somehow violating, before pointing toward an almost hidden door in the back of the room, grinning from ear to ear while looking at me. I didn't want to move, but Lila, still standing behind me, gave me a slight shove. Somehow, I still remember thinking that this would be it. I was about to get murdered or sacrificed or something like that. Of course, I didn't really think so. Otherwise, I would have turned and ran, no matter how fascinated I felt. But I wanted to make that dumb and obvious joke. Only, I kept my mouth shut and walked on, while 2 pairs of eyes followed me. They didn't speak anymore, chose to stay quiet and watch as I slowly made my way toward the door. What can I say? It kind of felt like I had to play along. So I did. The door was almost completely covered in this strange rope and cloth that hung everywhere around me, and I got a distinct impression that someone must have raided some harbor or the like to decorate this place. But again, I kept my mouth shut, and before I reached the door fully, it swung inward, revealing another room. This one was smaller, filled with candles and a new guy, sitting in a chair in the middle. He didn't look anywhere as impressive as the man at the desk had done, but somehow the atmosphere surrounding him still made me keep my mouth shut. The man didn't introduce himself, didn't even speak a single word at first, and simply pointed to a small pillow on the floor in front of him. Well, I had come too far already to stop now, I thought to myself. So I followed his command and sat down. He started chanting softly, almost growling as he spoke in a language I don't think really exists. Before suddenly, a clammy hand touched my forehead. I still feel kinda icky about that one, to be honest. But in that moment, I kinda let it happen. The man started chanting again, then suddenly stopped and talked directly to me. He told me I had a lot of baggage, and I nodded. Then he started throwing out statements. Barnum statements, as I learned they're called since. You know, the typical stuff. You are far more insecure than you let on. You let the small things rile you up, even though you know you should just ignore them. You're always doubting yourself and are afraid the people around you only pretend they like you. That kind of stuff. Things that are true for every single human in existence, but can feel deeply personal nonetheless. He was quite good at that, I have to admit. I only looked it up later and realized how much bullshit he was spewing then. But in that moment, I truly felt like he was talking purely about me and my insecurities. Next, he pulled out what looked like a cheap copper amulet and started swinging it between us, telling me the source of my problems stemmed from a disaster in my past life. He had me close my eyes and concentrate on that. And to my surprise, I really did feel something. Like a breeze, cold yet fresh. I could hear the waves and smell salt in the air. Now, those memories invoke dread. But back then, I kind of felt at peace. The man kept talking to me, but underneath his words, I could hear the voices of other people, yelling, laughing, and singing all around me. It felt like time passed strangely, like I'd spent just a few seconds there, but then at the same time hours before I dared open my eyes again. The man was looking at me intently, still holding up the pendant. He talked to me in a calming manner and promised me that I was about to experience would change my life, and that I had taken the first step on my journey to regressive self-healing. I stood up, and the man put the medallion in my hand before he bade me goodbye in that strange, unknowable language and pointed to the door. It's hard to describe how I felt back then. Somehow relieved, yet disturbed at the same time. I left the room as quickly as I could, shaking from head to toe, but as I finally opened the door and looked at Lila, she seemed almost ecstatic. She hugged me, asked me if I understood now, then took a glance at the cheap copper medallion, closed my hand around it, telling me that she was glad I came today. I was too perplexed to reply. She walked over to the desk and, surprisingly, the man was already holding up one of those little machines that accept credit cards for payment. I didn't get a look at how much Lila paid that day, but I'm sure glad I didn't have to shell out a few $100 for that anyway. To my surprise, Lila didn't go in next. She just thanked the guy at the desk, then shuffled me out the door so we could make our way back out through the tunnel and the crack house. My real problems started from there. We parted ways, and I drove back home, now feeling more and more disturbed after that strange experience. It was like I finally got back to my normal self, and parts of me felt almost violated. She had pushed and manipulated me into it, I realized. But the real shock came later. I felt tired and stressed and wanted to lie down for a bit. But as I closed my eyes and stretched out on a comfy couch in my living room, the darkness behind my closed eyelids changed. Instead of the normal noises surrounding me at home, the chirping of birds outside and the sounds of cars driving by, I started hearing waves crashing against a wooden hull. The sound of people running across a ship, ropes and rigging stretching and scratching across each other in wooden beams. The noise of the wind getting caught in giant sails. Someone was calling out to me, and I opened my eyes. I found myself still on the couch, but the smell of salt in the air still lingered in my nostrils. That sounds preposterous. I know. I live hundreds of miles from the next port or ocean, and I've never even been on a boat. Yet somehow I felt like my whole apartment was gently rocking back and forth, while a stiff breeze in the air got caught by a sail somewhere. I got up quickly, of course, more curious than disturbed, and took out the cheap medallion to have a closer look at it. My first theory was drugs, of course. I turned the copper thing over, sniffed it, wiped it, but even after all that, I could neither feel nor smell anything wrong going on there. Its edges were off, and the material itself was so thin I could have folded it in half with ease. But no matter how I turned and looked at it, there was zero chance this thing had been used to drug me. So, I started researching the topic. At first, I wanted to know if I could find some trace of that guy on the internet, but without an address or name, that search was a complete waste. So, I changed tactics. I dug up everything I could on people like him. Fortune tellers, New Age mystics, modern shamans, or what they call themselves. Most of what I found either praised or cursed them, but I learned a bit about the techniques they use to get money out of their customers. Only, nothing I found could explain what I was experiencing in any way. There was an article about the art of suggestion I thought could be interesting, but not even that one went into details at all. All it talked about was that one could implant a fake memory in a subject's brain. But it would take time. Weeks at least, not a dozen sentences in some basement with a cheap copper thing swinging in front of the person. It was completely useless. At least to me. I spent the whole afternoon chasing leads that led nowhere, and found myself just as lost in the evening as I had been when I returned. Only now, I could feel this uneasy feeling in my chest. The setting sun had an effect on me, I think. It wasn't fear, at least not then. I tried my best to get my mind off of this topic. Cooking, watching TV, reading, nothing helped. The damned smell of the sea and the feeling of a rocking boat I was standing on seemed to linger. Every time I closed my eyes, I thought I would feel it again. But it always stayed just out of reach. I wasn't sure if I wanted to experience it or not. What a fucking joke. All I had to do was go to bed. I know now. That was when the real nightmare started. And I was about to find that out on my own as well. After showering and brushing my teeth, I went to bed, and a strange excitement still made me antsy. But as soon as my back touched the mattress, I could feel this strange calm coming over me. I knew, deep inside, that I was about to see it again, and I think I felt excited more than scared. So, I turned to my side and closed my eyes, and suddenly, the world around me washed away, and got replaced by exactly what I had been waiting for. Waves hit the wooden hull. The smell of the sea wafted over me. I heard the rigging moving, the ropes straining as the massive sails caught the wind and pushed the wooden behemoth forward on the waves. The deck I was standing on got lifted up, then fell down and crashed into the water once more. I could feel every single impact as I stood there, completely immersed in this sensation, then opened my eyes. This time, I didn't find myself in my bed, standing outside. The sky was cloudy. There were birds whizzing by as I looked out over a rough, dark sea. You could see the land behind us growing ever smaller. I wasn't alone either. People were running past me. Some were climbing up what seemed like simple ropes, and others were up on the sails already, pulling toward the slacking rigging. They were shouting over each other, screaming and laughing at the same time. My body moved as well. It started slowly, I wasn't in control, but I could feel it. My hand, bigger and rougher than ever before, softly touched the railing in front of me. I knocked on it before my feet took a step and I turned away from the sight of the land disappearing behind us. It was terrifying, yet thrilling at the same time. The rocking boat, the ocean opening up in front of us. Dark water everywhere around this ship that seemed made only from wood and rope and nails. My body moved just like the other people around me did. Instinctively bending the knees before every impact to not lose balance, gripping the railings and ropes to steady myself, and even once ascending what was essentially a ladder. Someone was shouting out commands as the whole deck worked in unison to keep the ship going as fast as possible, while the wind shifted and turned. Watching the waves part for the bow of the ship was breathtaking. I could feel the strength of the wind every time my hand touched one of the ropes holding the sail. Below me, on the deck, I could see younger people as well. Not even 18 by the looks of it, but they worked just as hard as the rest of us. This was real, I kept telling myself, as the ship broke through wave after wave, while the cloud-filled sky above turned the sunlight grey and dim. My body continued moving on its own, only resting sporadically before setting off again, while the people's faces around me seemed far too serious and tense for the wonders we were all experiencing. I don't know how many hours I spent there, running around, shouting, climbing and pulling, but the land had long since disappeared far behind us, as a single cry filled the air. My head shot up before the scream had even ended, and at a single glance my body froze. Someone was hanging from the platform atop the main mast as a single loose rope swung back. I felt a splash of water as a big wave crashed into the ship, but no one seemed to move anymore. The man, screaming, was losing his grip. My body knew that and jumped back as I heard the pitiable cry and felt something heavy hitting the boards of the deck just in front of me. More people were screaming out, but not in fright or empathy, but fear. My own head turned away from the body in front of me and up toward the crow's nest again. It was moving, and not in the rhythm of the ship or waves. The others had noticed it as well, and they all felt the same fear. Someone shouted, and I heard a loud crack deep below as the main mast suddenly jerked. I woke up screaming in my bed, while my alarm was blaring and the sun hit my face. This fear the person in my dream had felt still gripped my heart as I sat up in bed, drenched in sweat. Or was it seawater? I'm honestly not so sure anymore. The dream never left me throughout the day. I tried keeping my mind occupied, but hardly managed to do anything all day. Somehow, with a grim fascination, I was waiting for the next night. And it came. That evening, as I was getting ready for bed, I could feel myself growing more and more nervous. This time, as I closed my eyes, I could feel the trepidation, and as I opened them again, I did so in the midst of the scream. A shiver was running through the boards beneath my feet. There was a new scent on deck now. Blood. I could see someone jumping from the main mast as it jerked again, and heard more people yelling. My body moved on its own again, as more and more shouts bellowed out around me. I jumped forward and raced over the deck toward the place I really didn't want to see closer. The hole. It looked like a black hole in the deck, and my body was heading straight for it. Something broke below. People were screaming. A loud crack filled the air. I could feel something touching my cheek, tearing my skin as a rope snapped and just brushed the side of my face. My body didn't slow down, instead dove forward as the rigging on the side suddenly broke loose and pulled a metal hook across the deck. The sound of someone getting hit was unmistakable. I could feel the shiver running up this body's spine as it pushed itself up, the eyes still focused on what was going on in front. Chaos was breaking out. My body slid over the wet deck, past two guys cowering, and dropped into the darkness of the hold. I woke up again, screaming and panting. The left side of my face felt numb. This was getting too real, I thought, but as I checked myself in the mirror, I could see what looked like rope burn on my skin. This couldn't be a coincidence, right? It was still the middle of the night, so I made myself some coffee and tried to calm down. I spent the next 6 hours trying to get answers again. What was happening? How could I stop it? Stuff like that. But I couldn't find anything. I tried finding the guy in the basement again, but there too I had no luck. After watching the sunrise, I even tried to retrace my steps with Lila to find him once more. But for the life of me, I couldn't even find the right crack house. My friend, by the way, is ignoring me now. I've sent her a dozen messages, but she's left me on red. Maybe it all was some kind of plan of hers. Some way of shifting something onto me. I don't know. What I do know is that I fell asleep again a few hours ago and found myself falling into the dark hold of a wooden ship out at sea in the process of sinking. It took a few seconds for my eyes to adjust, but the body moved on as if it didn't need to see to know where it had to go. The screams of the people above on deck were dampened, while the unmistakable sound of wood getting crushed was so much louder. I felt it as well. The ship was tearing itself apart, but the body kept on moving, ducking, sliding around. A crate dropped on me and hurt my shoulder, but the pain hardly registered. Down in the cramped darkness, where the air seemed stale and hot, I was looking for something, trying to do something. My body stumbled and fell down some rickety stairs and came up on its hands and knees before my eyes finally seemed to grow accustomed to the low light. The whole hold was filled with crates and sacks. There were people around me, some of them heading in the same direction as myself, others climbing up or running toward the deck. I think my body tried to somehow stop the ship from breaking apart. I don't know. But what I could feel was that the ship was turning. The waves were hitting it from the side, and I could hear the crates around me scratching against each other. This was so dangerous, I remember thinking in the dream that felt too real. My body shot forward and collided with another person heading in the other direction, which sent both of us sprawling. The ship got lifted up, and I heard more wood breaking as the cargo started shifting and moving inward. A scream filled the hole, echoed by what seemed like a dozen others, as one of the boxes finally tumbled, pulling others with it. Pain shot through my body as the heavy crate fell on me, crushing and pinning my left leg to the floor. Someone was crying, and as I looked back at my foot, I could see the heavy wooden box on it. The scream was coming from my mouth as someone rushed past, ignoring me completely. I shot up on my couch again, and I felt the stinging pain in my legs since. My heart is still racing, hours after I've woken up. Because, pain isn't the worst of it. I think I know how this dream will end. I'm sure of it. Because in all the commotion of that last second, there was one sound I distinctly noticed. The rushing of water entering the hole through the hull. The main mast must have torn a hole into it. I can't move my leg. It feels almost crushed, yet I don't dare call an ambulance. What if they give me a sedative? I know how that sounds. I'm sure I'll die the next time I'll fall asleep. Lila isn't answering my calls, and no one I've reached out to knows anything about that strange guy in the basement. The more I think about it, the more certain I am that she's the one who put it all in motion. I don't know what to do anymore. Every time I close my eyes, I can hear the waves. What should I do? I broke apart the copper medallion to somehow break this spell. That has to be it, right? Whatever they did to me has to stop now. Right? I won't wake up on that damned ship again. Please don't make me see the end. I'm safe now. Right?